What is up, down and sideways, all you beautiful individuals? It is another FPF League on Lock Air. I'm Mark here with you guys today to preview ahead some continuing Worlds action, and more importantly, put the prophesizing hat on, the sorting hat of Harry Potter, if you will, to decipher, to illuminate the path to yet another Omega upset. And today we are looking at VKS versus BLG, which, if comes true, will maybe, probably, most definitely be the biggest upset in international history.
It would absolutely throw itself right into that heavily vaunted conversation about all of these upsets and all the drama that can play through it. No question, if it's able to be pulled off, we would be talking about it in that type of category. I'm not fully sold yet, so I need to have some reasons to help convince me onto the side of it. We've talked about these various upsets, as you said, prophesizing in the past, having some success with it. I will say, on those ones, though, it was more so about selling me on the individual team, on a star player, someone making that difference. I'm willing to buy maybe a little bit more this time around listening to this one, because I'm wanting to buy in on Vico, so I'll listen in. And I'm also looking to sell as much as I can about BLG at this point. So absolutely, hit me with how it happens.
Yeah, we got a few points here, a few arguments to go. And first and foremost, here's the disclaimer. I understand it's been best of ones for BLG. I understand it's incredibly unlikely that a Brazilian team will beat the top seed from the LPL. But, number one, we've got pressure. We've got massive pressure on BLG, the top seed from the LPL, in China for the event, a team that has been so dominant over the last couple of years, and outside of a few LPL titles, doesn't have as much to show for it, and Worlds is kind of that main checklist. So being eliminated here is basically a disaster for them, for their country that they're representing. And on the other side, you had Trimby on the cast for this last Swiss stage draw with the chillest and most immaculate of vibes. So they could not be further on the end of the spectrum for how much pressure is on these squads heading into this best of three.
Which, number one, shout out to Trimby for the role that he has played stepping into that broadcast after these games. He's been fantastic for it. Absolutely, you are right. Portraying the vibes, the identity that I think is starting to form around this Vico team. And when you talk about the pressure on BLG, that has to be a factor. In fact, it would be inhuman for it not to be a factor on these guys, and how much is riding on this one, knowing the individual, the cores of this team and the failures that they have individually gone through, and the pressure of the region and the failures that have happened here on the international stage. Looking at this one at home, all of that is absolutely going to play a factor into the performance, into how much you are here as this BLG team and what you can get out of this matchup.
Add to the fact that IG has already been eliminated. That's one LPL team not there. And top eSports people are anticipating to choke or not show up. So all of a sudden, BLG is one of two teams that people are kind of hanging their hopes on for the LPL. And you know, their only win so far is against the worst team in the tournament in Fnatic, which kind of brings me to my next point. This is, I think, an obvious one. You look at the jungle matchup. The jungle carousel, you can call it, for BLG. Shadow comes in, has a great game against Fnatic. But if you watched any people watching this game, everybody was calling for this Nefiri level 2 red buff. All the casters, all the streamers were going, this is how you play a Reddit, you know it's going to happen. Somehow Fnatic has no idea. They fall behind and get blown out of the water eventually. But Fnatic was bad at this tournament, and that's BLG's only win. And even Desamis coming in here for Keedstar, you just saw him have one of the best early level 1 invades dancing around vision and creative pathing that we've seen at the event.
Yes, and that is absolutely one of the areas that you want to key in on this if you're trying to build up the upset potential in this matchup, is that jungle matchup and how you can push it, how you can be creative with things, and especially knowing, again, finally starting to get into that fearless draft territory that we've been begging, asking for, wanting to see more of a factor at the event. It's going to be a factor in this series, and that's certainly one of the ways that I want to see utilized for the upset here is going to be one of the ways that you can attack this BLG squad. But you're right, looking at that jungle, I see the instability of BLG, the record that they have shown at this event so far, and only getting the win against Fnatic feels like the smallest of steps forward on a whole lake that is covered with ice, and you've already heard the cracking. You've already seen the splinter lines all the way through it, and you're trying to make your way back to shore. One small little shuffle from BLG, no real noise. That's the Fnatic win. But anything else, I'm feeling like it's that foot that's going to slip right through the ice, and that could be VKS Keystar making that push.
And listen, it's especially now, it feels like it's less of a two-headed jungle situation for BLG and more like Beishwan is kind of looking like a straight-up liability, which means you need that high level out of Shadow because I'm not sure the honeymoon phase swap is going to be working, even though we're hitting that best of 3 now, which brings me to the next point, which is purely an eye test. Have you watched the games for BLG? And opposite, have you watched them for Keystar? This isn't your normal wildcard region anymore. You're seeing BLG Bin making uncharacteristic solo deaths, getting caught out. Knight is whipping flashes. Elkinon are losing Caitlyn Elise lanes. And Keystar, their synergy looks like it's the highest it's been all year.
When you watch these games, when you see the player cams, everything afterwards, BLG looks uncomfortable, and they're only going to get more uncomfortable as the pressure leads into this series, and if it starts to seep in to the series with some wins for Keystar, absolutely be looking at how uncomfortable it's going to be one of these BLG players. And on that flip side, I think you're starting to become comfortable if you are Keystar at this event. That certainly has been my impression throughout these games. The improvement, the ease, the communication, I think all these things are sorting back into that comfort zone where you can just be zen, zone in, and make those performances, make these plays and calls that you need to pull off an upset like this. I think absolutely going just purely off the eye test and where you have seen the comfort levels of this team and how it has changed at this event. Yes, that's one of those ones that you can throw right into the Keystar category.
Then we're heading into really, and it's kind of jumps on the pressure point, is history. There's an added weight on BLG's history, or on BLG's shoulders, because of the history of the LPL and specifically some of the top seeds. We're talking EDG 2017. Finished last in their group, don't even make it out. 2015 LGD, same thing. First seed comes in, can't get out of their group. 2021 FPX, they weren't the first seed, but they were tournament favorites and failed to get out of their group. So it's not like there's no shortage of other teams to look at. That's got to be in the back of fans' minds about this team having title aspirations and completely flubbing it on that international stage.
It's not crazy to say that this group was 1 or 2 plays away from being world champions last year. This was supposed to be the return, the redemption, refigure it out and get back to the promised land and capture that championship that should have been ours. Getting to this point and how the performance has gone at Worlds and facing up that steep cliff to get back to that point, I don't know if BLG has that character, has that personality to dig deep and fight their way out of this one. This absolutely feels like maybe one of these ones where it is going to be this disappointing end to what should have been this run back for the squad.
And I know people, understandably so, are saying, yeah, but BLG went 1-2 last Worlds as well, and then went all the way to finals and were a couple plays away from beating T1. Main differences here are they were losing to LNG and T1 in those matchups last year, and then they proceeded to beat Western teams to qualify. They beat Mad Lions, PSG, and G2 to level up and make it to knockouts. They've already played the Western teams and have lost to them. I know this is a Western team equivalent matching up against VKS, but there needs to be a level up. They didn't even have it to beat the Western teams already. They've had such an easier schedule, and they're still 1-2.
It goes back to the previous point. Just do an eyeball test, but do it with last year's BLG and those matches at this same event where they're having the same record at this point. They're not the same. The performance levels, the interactions, and the confidence that you can see with this team, nowhere close to being at that type of level. So yes, I will buy in that this is different. And I think that I'm ready. Get me to Brazil, because I'm all aboard for this one, for the Keystars pulling off this historic upset at this point. I think that you have laid out, yes, the positives, the upsides that are there on Keystar and why you can buy into an overperformance, a historic type of moment on their side. And I think there's plenty of reasons. Take your grocer's pick of what you want on why you don't believe in BLG to the same level that you did before, or even to a level that is of a true competitor at this event anymore.
And the last point on it is an easy one, because 100 Thieves beat BLG. Vivo Keystar stomped 100 Thieves in the LTA playoffs. That's it. Done, dusted.
Easy peasy. I'll take that one, no question. That is a good way to lay that one out. I'm saying it. Dokla making that type of quick work out of bin. You telling me that you can't see Keystar find a way to level up and pull that off? Absolutely. I think that is a good point to take in for the upset.
If BLG comes in and swiftly 2-0s them, we'll just delete this video from being uploaded. It never actually happened, right?
Just the cost of doing business, of trying to find yourself one of these amazing upsets.
Before we have that crazy upset happening, we do have some games on the Wednesday to actually kick off this kind of second week of Worlds, and that includes the absolute banger of an NA versus EU. The first NA versus EU, and the third time this year that we're getting FlyQuest versus G2. Of course, we had the swift 3-0 that FlyQuest handed G2 at MSI, and then G2 bounced back, but it was kind of a Mickey Mouse tournament. Everyone was a little bit burnt out at EWC, but this has become a fun little rivalry. But since that MSI series, at the very least, I think Skewmond and Lebrov are at a much higher level than we saw at MSI.
I think this is one of those ones where there should be a clear favorite in this one from how we have seen things play out through the year, and taking into account however much of the head-to-heads that we have had, it is FlyQuest that edges out in front. But you're right. One of the things that you can't necessarily factor in, but you do have to keep in your mind and will play in to this matchup, is the improvements, is the growth of Skewmond and Lebrov, certainly over the last month, if not last 2 months, I would say, really, for G2 and how things have gone. Yes, I think that can be an avenue that you look to equalize things and find an avenue into the series. This one will be closer than I think a lot of NA fans would like it to be at this point.
Biggest question mark or X factor has got to be the top lane, because we've seen BB also level up this World Championship, much like he did last year. And, Bwipo can be the merry-go-round that is Bwipo on the Rift. And more importantly, I think both these guys are playing something spicy. I'd be surprised if they just ignore Cassante and Mbessa entirely this series.
I think that might be a mistake, but that's also because
some of these picks don't make sense from these two guys often.
I truly believe in the giga-busted 200 years of Riot champion design that we have seen utilized by those two specifically in the top lane. But you're right. I think these guys would maybe roll the dice on their other type of combinations or matchups that you could have in that top side. Certainly seen a lot of each other. Very familiar, this matchup, Bwipo and Broken Blade. We've seen it either domestically or on the international stage. We've had these type of throwdowns. So certainly one that I'm looking for this iteration to provide some fireworks, be a little bit different in this one. But I think that looking at the key players, you're looking for things to be those movers and shakers. Guys like Inspired to factor in, be a difference maker in this series. On the other side, you're looking at Caps to, again, be your leader, be a difference maker, someone to create those advantage, discomfort in that mid lane for G2. This could be one of those ones where you have to rely on your iconic players making iconic plays to be the difference maker.
I got G2 winning a contested third game to get through, but fret not, because I think FlyQuest can still make top 8. Even if they lose this series, they still have that power, and they're of that caliber, depending on the matchup, of course.
I think, it's going to be how we see out, the play through this matchup is going to be part of that evaluation. But certainly it's one of those ones where in past years you'd be looking at a matchup like this and saying, yep, this is it. This is the golden ticket. This is the only one the West is going to have their opportunity out. I don't think that's true for either one of these teams, bearing if they absolutely look awful in the matchup, right?
Yeah.
One of those type of things. But certainly if they both show up to the way that we are expecting, whoever wins, yes, they are getting that golden ticket and moving on, but the loser still has that redemption opportunity and should be looking at themselves and who will be around them in that point and still like their chances to fight their way out.
Similarly to this matchup, we got CFO and Hanwha Life, the other matchup, who I think both are top 8 quality teams, as we've already seen at this tournament. And we saw this head-to-head earlier in the year at an international event, even earlier than MSI, going way back to first stand. And listen, that's when Hanwha Life were the best team in the LCK and an absolute beast that you thought would be the best throughout the whole year. And CFO, we're still a young team. Hongq's international debut. He's just a young upstart rookie. I feel like since then, those two teams have come a lot more to an even level.
Holy cow. You gotta be kidding me that we get this matchup here, because I promise you, after first stand, everybody on the side of CFO put up a big Hanwha Life poster in their room with a big red Sharpie circling it around it, drawing an X on it, getting ready for a rematch, hoping for an opportunity like this on the world's stage to make a statement. They've got their opportunity here, and as you outlined, yes, the trajectories, the growth, the changes that we have seen within both of these teams since that point could not be more different. I think that when you look at Hanwha Life, yeah, there's opportunity to look for the growth, the changes, the journey that they have been on since starting the year so strong with first stand, everything in between, and then getting to the point where they do lock themselves up as that second seed from the LCK. But when you're talking about what CFO has done and the lengths that they have shown their strength and growth this year and the experience that they have picked up, I don't know how you can't be optimistic about their chances to make this a reverse of fortunes against Hanwha Life.
Already beat T1. We're in the driver's seat, 1 or 2 team fights away from beating anyone's legend to already qualify. AL's a team that's beaten Hanwha Life earlier in the year. So yes, there's absolutely avenues. This might even be closer to me than G2 FlyQuest. I mean, these are both 2 even matchups. I'll give Hanwha Life the slight edge, but it's not much, especially because, again, this isn't the Vladimir Zed solo lane picks that we were seeing from Hanwha in the previous matchup between these two.
Yeah, it'll be very different this time around. And I think when you're looking at far as how you make up the difference, how you make up that gap in what is expected talent and power level in a matchup like this, I'm looking at the top side. One of the key players for this Hanwha Life team is Zeus. No question about it. The big free agency add-on who has been a difference maker when he is at his best for this squad. How do you make sure he's not at his best? Well, outside of having Doran on your team, which is usually one of the counter cards you can play against Zeus, you roll through and make him uncomfortable with the type of players that Rest and Driver are on the top side and how you can alternate and truly provide complete 180s of flavors that you're going up and matching up against. That's absolutely one of the ways that you can change it up. Again, baseball on the mind this time of year and with how things are going, it reminds me of a fastball and a changeup type of situation. You're expecting one thing, here comes the other, and boom, you swing right over top of it. And when you're expecting that one, here comes the other one right at you. And that's one of the things that you can get with the combo, the way that you have this top lane set up for CFO.
Let's see how they cook when the Scion is off the table, as will happen quickly in this Fearless Draft best of 3. But hope you enjoyed your 2-day break from games, because we're back in full swing on the Wednesday with all these matchups and week 2 action from Worlds. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here do absolute beauties. Thanks for hanging out. We'll catch you on that flippity flip.